We have a full agenda tonight. I want to gavel us to order as promptly as possible, and I'd like to welcome everybody here to the monthly meeting of the Yellow Springs Board of Education. This is our both regular meeting but also our organizational meeting at the beginning of the calendar year. So we welcome you to this meeting. And we're here to conduct business before the board. We have time set aside for comments, as you'll see on the agenda, but we'll first start with a roll call from our treasurer.
Aida? Here. Sean?
Here.
Sylvia?
Present.
Okay, I'm gonna do,
Exactly.
Old Steve and new
Just
Steve.
do it once and we'll say yes at the same time. Kind of a thing?
No, you say Steve's. They say yes at the same time.
Steve was before Aida, so you're not last like for any particular reason, but Steve.
I'm here.
Yeah.
It rotates.
Just call by last names if you want.
I'm not allowed to do that anymore.
Right,
Well,
we voted, remember,
We
years
voted
ago.
out last week.
Far more friendly.
So item 1.3, we need to administer the oath of office. So I'm looking at our treasurer to do that. And so
This is like graduation.
I know,
Look,
exactly.
Graduation,
That's right.
you love this?
Okay, if the three new board members could
Pretty cool.
stand. You're supposed to raise your right hand, and then I will read this. I will read this, and then you can just respond with I will.
Maybe just come in.
So, I, Aida, Steve, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as board member in and for said Yellow Springs Exempted Village School District, Greene County, Ohio, to the best of my ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during my continuance in said office and until my successor is chosen and qualified.
I will.
All right.
Thanks. And in my temporary role as president pro tem, I do actually just want to make a special welcome to Steve McQueen on my right, who is the new member of our board. The others of us have gotten a little long in the tooth, but it's really delightful to have Steve and a new member, and we're very excited to start working with him as of tonight. So there we are. I'd like to move on to 1.4 and acknowledge the persons present. And now we need to get to our organizational business, which begins with the election of our board president.
So I would like to nominate Aida Mohammed
I'll
as
second
board
that.
president.
I'll second that nomination. Are there any other nominations from the board?
Or do we do them all together? Or?
No, I just, anybody else for
Anybody else?
president?
Oh, gotcha, sorry.
It looks like
So
you
then
might want
let's-
to do the gavel, but.
Yeah, well, so if we could have that roll call, please.
Okay. Sean,
Yes.
Sylvia,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes,
Steve,
Yes.
Aida.
Yes, and thank you.
wonderful.
Trusted members.
Okay.
Okay.
Aida, you gotta go through this again.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's right, 2.2.
Oh,
Two
you're-
words that change. I, Aida Mohammed, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as board president of the said Yellow Springs Exempted Village School District, Greene County, Ohio, to the best of my ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during my continuance in said office and until my successor is chosen and qualified.
I will.
Yay.
Excellent.
Thank you, everybody.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
We'll move to 2.3 and the election of our vice president. Do I have a nomination?
So I'd like to nominate Sean Creighton for vice president.
And I'll second that nomination.
Wow.
Are there other nominations for vice president? Hearing none, let's go ahead and call that roll as well.
Sylvia?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Aida?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
All
All
right.
right.
And now,
All
Sean,
right.
please take the oath.
I love that you're reading it. This is a change. We used to have to read it.
I know.
8 years.
This is the way it is in most districts. So.
Is it really?
Not everybody
It
differently.
Not
used to
everybody
be a
can rock
repeat
this
after
one.
me.
Yeah, yeah.
This is the only time I get any power.
Enjoy it.
I, Sean Creighton, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as Board Vice President of the said Yellow Springs Exempted Village School District, Greene County, Ohio, to the best of my ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during my continuance in said office and until my successor is chosen and qualified.
I will.
Excellent, congratulations. And that takes care of items under number 2. Do you
All
want to take
right.
over? Was that it? Was that my?
You could go for it. So,
I am dizzy. with the
Enjoying this?
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, why don't we go ahead and adopt the consent calendar number 3?
Oh, boy.
The administrative portion of our consent calendar, items 3.1 through 3.19. And are there any comments from the superintendent or the treasurer that you'd like to pull out here? These are, well, I guess we need to
You
do
have
these.
to assign
these-
those
right.
committees
But I
and
didn't think
stuff.
we needed to vote on those.
No.
Assignments, okay. So we need to appoint the treasurer pro tem. Oh, it's only going to get better. Do you
Support
Bye.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
okay, well, Shawnee, you want to just jump right back
Yeah,
in?
unless,
Go for it.
unless somebody wants it.
Well, I was going to say, anybody else want to be treasurer pro tem? Good.
Good.
Sean?
Okay.
So we do need somebody to be the student achievement liaison since since Ann Erickson served in that role and she's no longer here.
Who's the treasurer?
Sean,
Is that something Steve?
I have a great role
Steve
model.
M is interested in?
I think Steve
I'm gonna
M.
call you Steve M and Steve C, like
That's
they
fine,
do
it
with
works.
kids in the same class who have.
Big
So
same
we'll
name.
have
Okay.
Steve McQueen in that position.
Yes, I would.
thank you.
Cool.
Legislative liaison.
You only meet once every 2 weeks with that. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Anybody want to?
Just once a month.
I mean, I like that position.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
If you like it.
And then finally, the village council liaison. This is something I served in through part of 2017, but Sean, you picked that up very graciously from me. Would you still be willing to serve in that role?
Yeah, I'm happy to stay in that role.
Okay,
Okay.
that would be swell.
That's great.
Great, so that's 3.1. 3.2, our committees.
Okay.
And again, we have the student review board. Ida has been
For 12 years.
for a long time. It hardly seems worth messing with success.
I like that role just because it's given me contact with students and I have little of that, so I like that, but I'm happy if somebody else wants to do that.
Can I make one quick comment
Oh,
about
yeah.
that, just so that everybody knows this? These are committees that are not board committees, if you will. There's district committees and then board members serve on them. I think there's a unique distinction, I think it's just important to point that out.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to do it unless somebody else wants to.
Contact the students is still sufficient.
That's right.
Yeah.
Item B, YSEE, Yellow Springs Educational Endowment. Sylvia, is that something you'd still like to do, or would you like to cycle off of that?
I enjoy it, but I'm fine if somebody else wants it, but I enjoy doing it.
That sounds like a yes to me.
Way to go.
Maybe the most exciting position of all, the insurance. Sean,
We
you
will
really,
have to.
Will we have to
negotiate
meet this?
spring, Right?
We didn't meet
Well,
this past year.
Not this year.
No,
won't be,
okay,
so-
well,
Depends when the new rates
You have
are
been hogging
negotiated,
this
right?
position.
Yeah.
Yeah, if somebody wants this committee that meets every 3 years, once or twice,
no, you can stay
because
on.
it looks great on your resume, you know, you're on the insurance committee.
All right,
We'll
sounds
stay,
like
we'll
it's.
keep there. Item D, the Wellness Committee. And Sylvia, this was again yours?
So, I mean, we don't meet that often, but, as I would defer to Donna, if she thinks I'm like a pastor, I don't bring anything worthwhile, and she'd like somebody else
Wow.
from the board.
No, actually, it was really helpful last year.
Okay,
Good.
I'm fine with it, if, you know.
So YSPSF, Ann Erickson was serving on this committee. Do we have somebody who,
It's the public school fund, right? Yellow Springs Public School Fund,
Yellow
right?
Yellow Springs Public School Fund?
How often have they been meeting? Maria?
So the issue is,
With finances, I'd rather do the wellness.
yeah,
Switch with someone that would be more comfortable with something financial.
we've not been meeting that much, but like our last meeting was just online, actually. And so, not online, we did a phone call
Yeah.
meeting, so it was really small. I think if we do, it's usually, if we actually meet in person, it's usually on Monday after school, so 3 o'clock or 3:30 usually is when we meet, 3:45. So it's sort of an FYI, just if anybody, I don't see us meeting much. I think the committee's actually becoming much more nimble than they used to be with fewer members and things are changing a little bit.
Do you want
So-
to give
I'm
me
happy to
more
serve on
details?
that, yeah.
Great,
Um,
great.
The Faculty Advisory
Awesome.
Committee?
And I don't wanna hog these committees.
Yeah, I know.
Steve, new Steve,
yeah,
is
Steve
interested in
M.
any one of these committees where my name
Yeah.
is next to, I mean, like, certainly jump in, but, that committee meets once?
Well, we're supposed to meet a few times a year, but we haven't, and so, this,
Okay.
we got.
It's
They haven't been
necess-
meeting
if
like
necessary.
once. I mean, I enjoy being on that
Necessary,
committee,
that's
but also, again, I don't wanna
Yeah.
take up my
Right.
name next to all these.
Yeah, that sounds like something that would be, because then this would be student-based and this would be teacher-based, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I will,
You do that?
yes.
And so, Steve, when we do meet, it's pretty flexible, we make sure whoever's on the committee is available. And so, we would work with your schedule and everybody else's schedule to do that, so,
Okay.
yeah, so it's not too big of a.
All right.
It's actually a good committee, to learn more about what's going on in buildings and things like that, so.
Agreed.
Great,
Yeah.
thanks.
Our Crisis Plan Committee, which meets,
Every 3 years.
I was gonna say,
And it's
once in
coming
a
up-
blue moon.
It's
But
coming
it'll-
up this year,
It'll
this
come up this
spring.
year.
So we're gonna start that soon.
Good, okay, and I'm happy to do that, I've done that my whole tenure too, so.
Okay, good. And then we have 2 additional committees, whereas it says the committee appointments are not required, but we have had board members serving in these roles for several years now. Policy Committee, Sean and Ida.
I'm a geek.
Yeah, right, you love policies.
I'm very thankful to those of you who like to be on the policy
Exactly,
committee.
that's
It's a
right.
lot
how
of reading.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
ton
right,
of reading.
a lot of, not
Over and
fun
over
reading
and,
either.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to stand.
I'm happy to just read it the times we need to read it for the
Unless
board
Steve,
meetings.
you wanna, Steve McQueen, if you're interested.
Yeah,
You don't have to. You don't have to. You don't have to.
He's
Yeah, we don't want him to resign.
Pass.
Next meeting,
We need
I would
to
recommend that one for the
Slow
first meeting.
entry is
The
a
first
nice
committee.
Yeah.
thing too,
That's
so.
probably.
a nice glide path in here.
We obviously don't wanna hog it.
Yeah, let me get familiar if you don't mind.
Yeah, okay, so
And then
we're
our
good.
Open Enrollment Committee, which again, I think meets once a year, maybe twice. And I've been on that for a couple of years now, I'm happy to stay there.
Me too.
Okay.
Yeah?
Good.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
It's just looking at the policy, so.
Splendid. 3.3, we need to appoint a district records officer.
That's,
That has
Dawn
usually been
Bennett.
Dawn, and I think she's done just a marvelous job with that. I
You
don't
don't
see,
even know if I've done it.
and ignorance does provide a certain level of bliss.
I just did the
Um,
training, I took my new assistant, we did it in the fall,
Okay.
and then you just have to do it within the 4 years that the board member is on, so we really have 4 years to.
Okay. So are you content to just stay in
I
this
have
role?
to do it for my job anyway, so
Great.
it's fine.
Good. 3.4, we will confirm that our monthly meetings take place on the second Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. in this room. These will a few of these get changed around the holidays every once in a while, but otherwise this is where we meet, this is when we meet. Any objections to that?
you don't need to go through each one.
And now, right, so we'll just go through all of these and we'll entertain, again, unless there's anything else that you two want to pull out from the remaining.
I'll just point out some of the highlights. So, board compensation stays the same. I talked to Dawn, she said that hasn't changed in terms of the state upping the amount per meeting. millage rates going up to 0.545 from 0.5.
Mileage.
Mileage,
Sorry.
not mileage. Do be very careful here, Superintendent.
Mileage.
From 5.54, or how much is it now?
535.
535, that's right, okay, so it's going up, 0.01. And then I think that's all I wanted to point out, everything else is pretty standard.
It's pretty straightforward.
So I will point out our attorneys, we are keeping John Podgorski on there, just in case, you never know. But everybody else is pretty much who we've used.
Okay,
All right,
so we need a motion that will cover all of the administrative portion of the consent calendar all the way down to 3.19.
so moved. I would like to say that.
Second.
All
Second,
right,
can we call the roll, please?
Sylvia?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Aida?
yes.
Sean?
Yes.
All right.
Excellent.
One more.
Historic
And
moments.
then we'll go to...
What'd you
That
say?
was his first second.
I
It was
know.
second,
I'm
exactly.
sorry, I'm so sorry.
Second.
And vote, right?
And
Oh, I guess,
no, there was a voter.
oh, there was a vote earlier.
We'll go to the budget hearing presentation and the adoption of the budget.
Okay, I'm going to fly through this, just to give, since we have a new board member, I'll give a brief explanation about what this is. For school districts to be able to spend any of their money, we have to get our revenues approved on what is called the official certificate. And that comes from the Greene County Budget Commission. So the Greene County Auditor assesses the taxes on the taxpayers and then collects the taxes, and then we submit this budget every year, and he says, okay, this is basically what we estimate that you are going to collect in taxes for your next school year. So this is really effective July 1st of 2018. We have to do this tax budget. It's kind of this tax budget's been around for a long, long time. And when the 5-year forecast came into play, it kind of replaced what the tax budget does. We have to approve a 5-year forecast 2 times a year and send that to the Ohio Department of Education. The county auditor said that we don't have to do the full tax budget as is, that we are allowed to submit our 5-year forecast along with some other things that are in the tax budget. So it really, just from this, they will generate our first certificate for the next school year, and then I do my budgeting for revenues based off of what that certificate is. Many of these numbers are provided by me, but all of the taxing numbers are provided by the Greene County Auditor. So these numbers come from the Greene County Auditor, and it just shows what we expect to collect and what the effective millage rate is going to be for this calendar year. So that first page is that total there. These are all of our levies that go into that 20 mil floor. They are permanent levies, and what each of those levies will approximately collect. Just scroll down a little bit, and then, go ahead.
This is pretty cool. From 1969, 8.6 mils collected 365, right, back then? Was that
Right.
And now 8.6 mils will collect about over $1 million probably in
Yeah.
Alice Springs. So you can see how much that's been factored down over time. Important to note that there are folks who say that who talk about how we are taxing at 60 mils, and that's not true. That's the voted millage. Whenever it was voted in years ago, we're really taxing at a much lower amount than that actual number. And actually, these general fund ones are actually all the way down to 20 mils, not
Right.
47. So ineffective millage, but just kind of an interesting thing. I'm sorry.
Okay. And the special levy funds are just our permanent improvement and emergency levies and our bond levy, and what those rates are going to be for this calendar year and what we are expected to collect. And then the next one, I just have to show the county auditor what we spend our bond retirement money on, and I have to make my revenue estimates match what the county auditor says they're going to collect for us. So that's all I do, put in basically their revenues, and then I have to show them what we're going to pay in principal and interest that year, and that is how they know how much to assess for the bond retirement fund. And then the next fund is the permanent improvement fund. Just basically it's the same process. I use his estimates for the revenues, and then I just go and I take what we've budgeted for this year, put that in, and then kind of an estimate of what we could budget for the next couple of years. But it's just, I usually just put in that we're gonna spend all of what we have, but we still have, you know, a carryover that's over $100,000 that we may tap into, may not. Okay? This is all of our other funds, and the county auditor has no idea what any of these funds are, but we have to do this and get those put on the certificate, and then he just basically puts on the certificate what I put in all of these other funds, and he's just looking at, you know, what the cash balances are, how much money we're taking in, how much money we're spending, and they generally don't have any questions about that, they just go ahead and put that into the budget, but I cannot spend any money out of those funds without it being on the certificate.
So you mean the county auditor doesn't understand all the different school, business-related type funds? Okay.
No. Okay.
Sorry.
And then our particular county auditor wants to know what we are taking out of the general fund and transferring or advancing to other funds. At the end of last year, I had to do an advance to the Miller Fellow Grant because it's in the red, and then we transferred money to the athletic fund. This year, I don't have any money budgeted to transfer to the lunchroom fund because we did break even last year, made a little teeny tiny bit of money. I'm hoping for that situation again. I did budget money in the general fund just in case, but hopefully we'll break even. And then for the athletic fund, I increased it a little bit because our transfers to the athletic fund have been increasing over the past couple of years. It's been so hard to break even in an athletic fund. And then for next year, I did put transfer into the lunchroom back in because we are up for our 5-year contractor cycle, so we will be going out doing a request for proposal for lunchroom companies this spring. So it's highly likely that we won't break even next year. So unless we stay with Sodexo and we stay status quo, but we just don't know that yet. So just as a protection, I put that in there. And then just did it the next year too, because if we go with a different company, it's gonna take a couple of years to get up and running and you know, trying to balance the books and do that kind of stuff. So we may have to transfer money to that. And then the athletic fund. And this is just another sheet that they need to show what principal amount is still outstanding on our bond issue. So we are at 2.15 million for that. That last collection and payment on that is 12/1/2027, and then our House Bill 264 gets paid out of the general fund, and we pay that off in 3 years. So. And then I submitted I just put in a 5-year forecast. He will review that and just look at our numbers. I did say in my notes that our county auditor is not one that likes to see high cash carryover balances. He feels like that means you're over collecting. And what he did last year was make only certain districts that showed a high cash carryover come in and talk to the budget commission and say, why do you have this high cash carryover? And I mean, he has the legal ability to lower a levy or turn a levy off if he feels like you're collecting too much money. So it is an important thing. I don't know if we'll get called in this year or not, but he has to understand that when you vote a levy in, you're not voting it in for just that year. You're looking at the longevity of it and how long that levy is going to last, and making it last for as long as possible, putting that money in that savings account for when you start spending more than you're taking in. So if I have to present to him, board members are always invited. If I do, it might be nice to have a board member come with me to show support for why we would want this cash carryover and what we're doing with it. So I'll let you know. We usually don't hear. This is due by the 20th of January, so I'll hear after that if he wants to have if the budget commission wants to have a hearing with us. So that's the tax budget.
Very cool.
Other questions? Thank you very much for that, and especially, you know, the,
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, how quickly do you usually hear if they want that?
Within a couple weeks, they
Okay.
schedule them in early February.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Mhm.
other questions? Okay, so can I have a motion to approve this?
So moved?
Second?
All right. We'll call the roll.
Steve,
Yes?
Steve,
Yes.
Aida,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Sylvia.
Yes.
All right.
And I feel myself cracking under the pressure here, so I propose to call a 5-minute recess as we have concluded the organizational part of this meeting, and we will be able to get on to our regular business in 5, at just before 7 o'clock.
All right.
One more time. Good.
Across the street.
Oh, all right. He needs something across the street, so.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere over that way.
Yeah, we need to, well.
I don't stop the stream. I don't stop the stream during this because
Yes, everybody.
be aware of what you're saying.
You're on TV.
Congratulations, Madam President.
It just doesn't work.
Yeah. We were sort of comparing like
We're streaming on YouTube.
today earlier.
Yeah, right.
How is everybody?
So,
Just bounced off.
It's like my bedtime.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I said no.
now it's gonna be really starting tomorrow night, Saturday night.
Right.
Oh, of course, because, yeah, exactly, because they'll get everyone tune in because it is, yeah, a weather Fred, look at you. Yeah, there's probably no ice melt stuff. If it does, that'll be fine, because we had things, we want to go, like Harper's supposed to have a swim meet, and then we're supposed to maybe go get to see Lee Chick, because he's back in town for a little bit, and then you guys, and then we have friends visiting this weekend, and although that's the friend whose son ended up hospitalized
Yeah, there's all this
for
hype
flu
about
in
the
Indiana,
weather.
so I've been to Indiana and back today, I went to Indianapolis and back today, actually.
So if I say snow day really loud, shows up on the news.
I thought it was supposed to come later.
Oh, I see.
The forecast keeps changing.
Early dismissal.
Oh, they don't do that.
We won't do that, but it is supposed to start snowing by about 1. It's raining all day.
No, it's alright.
Which means it'll be ice for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought it was.
The forecast keeps changing. It was like 3 to 8 inches of snow, and then now it's like, I can't even get a number.
Okay. Yeah, and
Weather
because I
book
see like
says,
yeah, don't we need to sign a master copy? Yeah. Okay.
I think it
start
was.
raining at 6,
Go, she's got her.
and then
She
like
has to do
winter
that.
remix is 9
She
a.m.
signs her.
yeah. Right, okay.
Maybe 12 or 1,
So what do you
and it'll be freezing right now.
I have to get gas.
Which is easy.
It's like, I don't know if I'll get gas in it because I'm sure everybody will be running around.
I've got a full tank of propane, but if my power goes out because of ice on the line, it'll just be a nice full tank of propane, and I'll be
Because they've
cold.
already changed the start time for Harper's.
You split your own log?
Hey, my dad's got a sweater.
You have it all. I mean, technically you could, but
Get them out.
I got a new axe this summer. It's like, working it's, the carbon fiber, yeah, it's like it's super. Yeah, like, I haven't used it yet, but no, the handle is super lightweight, and my grandfather had these tools, literally, got home from Europe, and bought them in 1987, and so like axe heads were like sketchiest hand tools, and, like, just splinters in their hands. It's like every time you use them, I'm like,
I've had a few of those.
you know, I was like, you know, Dad, I think I'm gonna get some land tools, you know.
Did he get you?
No, I got it. Yeah, because, I mean, he had a bunch of stuff, and, like, you know.
That's what I heard.
I mean,
we're still, we're watching the weather.
I got my dad a drill for Christmas. You know, his drill is all corded, and we're like, it's in there, and like, you know, he bought a second drill, but it's just terrible. And, you know, like, you know, when we're doing a pilot hold, and, you know, and then like another drill for a deck, you know, it's like, you know, it's like, you know, going back and forth. I'm like, you know, well, if, you know, if we're doing stuff now, like, you know, bring that up, and like, you know, that'll be either like for the pilot hold, and then like the one, the corded. You know, like in this day and age, so much stuff is like cordless. I don't know, like, you know, like.
Call the meeting back to order. Welcome everybody who entered. I'd like to ask people to, if you haven't signed in the back, there's a pad of paper back there. If you would just put your name down as somebody who's in attendance, that would be appreciated. We are moving into our business meeting. We started at 6:30 with our annual organizational meeting. And we are moving forward now to the approval of the minutes for December 14th, 2017. Is there a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
All right, anybody have any issues with the minutes?
You'll abstain,
Yeah,
sure,
just abstain, yeah. Okay. Roll call.
Okay, this sort of made it confusing. I have to rotate the votes, so we're not always voting in the same order. So anytime he gets called first, then the next time you're gonna get called first. Okay?
Yeah,
So this
right.
is your turn. You'll get it soon enough, because you'll hear it in the same order all the time. I don't call you first.
Because when you say Steve and Steve, it sounds so
Why
much
don't you
different than
just
when you
say
say
Steve
Steve and Steve.
Grammatically.
Maybe you should sit on the other end. Okay, Steve.
Unless there's a plug there for my computer, otherwise I'm not moving.
Sylvia does have a whole.
I got like I would have to learn to stay in my area.
Aida,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Sylvia,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to 5.1. Communications, I don't think we have any.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, okay. So 5.2, I'd like to recognize the members of the audience, and if there's anybody who would like to address the board, please do so. And I would just like to remind people that we are here to do the business of the board. We're happy to have you in attendance. And if you'd like to share something with us, we'll give you about 3 minutes to do so. So,
Yeah.
coming up here, Eli?
I am.
You can handle it.
I can. You can't kick me out. I slipped into it just recently.
Hi, Eli.
Hi, I'm Eli Hurwitz. I'm the YSEA president. Thank you for letting me speak, Madam President, new Madam President. And old Madam President. I'm not going to say that.
Well, you just did.
She tricked me. Does that count against my time? So I've had a couple of really wonderful experiences the past couple of days that kind of represent the work that our teachers are doing, and I wanted to share them with you. I'll start with today and this morning and yesterday morning. I was working with first graders, and our first grade teachers are working with the students to help them identify who they treasure in their life. And that got me thinking about exhibition night. And our kindergarten teachers helped our students identify their superpowers. And we have fourth grade teachers that are taking our students around the state to learn about things outside of themselves. We have a fourth grade teacher that's teaching about really the cost of living, not just in our town, but the cost of living. What is affordability? We had had 7th graders that traveled on a long trip this year with the help of their teachers. We've got a 9th grade team that's working to help students identify a problem that they saw in the school as an individual or as a small group, and to address those with tutoring clubs and a self-defense club, and I just got asked to have a language club in the library. And so these are emails that I keep getting from students, but prompted with the help of our teachers. And these are not tests, but these are students that are being prompted by good teaching, by good teachers, to look outside of themselves at things that are not 1 plus 1 or a square root. And I really value the teachers that we have, and I would like you to value them as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if you're allowed.
All right, anybody else from the audience who wants to address the board?
You know, actually, since I'm here, might as well use this opportunity. I wanted to speak with my hat as the Yellow Springs High School speech and debate coach. And yes, I just want to first of all compliment Mario for pushing this initiative and formally asking me to take this on. We have a small team so far, but I wanted to mention that at the Beaver Creek tournament this past Saturday, Yellow Springs was noted as placing as one of the small schools in the top 3 at the tournament. So that was really cool. And if you guys had not heard about our freshman Galen Seek, who won the University of Dayton tournament, straight up won first place, beating varsity debaters that have been doing this for years.
So he wasn't a novice in that one.
They don't have novice tournaments anymore. No, they have to be varsity. But they're doing an excellent job, and I think they should really be recognized. But the other piece of this is that what we hope to do next year is they do now have middle school competitions as well. And so I have a vision of taking our Bulldog News kids, moving them into speech and debate, and continuing to do that. And with such a powerhouse in Galen, who's going to be here for another 3 years, he's going to be a great leader. So anyway, it's great. Yellow Springs is getting accolades, and the comments that I'm always hearing are, "Wow, you guys are pretty good." So there's a lot of excitement. So I thought you guys should know that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's very exciting.
So, quick comment about Galen. I happened to compete a little bit in speech and debate when I was younger, as did Brian. But to be a champion debater at a major tournament like that as a first year doing it, actually in the first 6 months, that's like unheard of. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah, first 3 months. I mean, that was the 4th tournament.
It'd be like having a high school baseball team full of freshmen that wins the state championship. It just doesn't happen. So that's amazing, actually. So I think that's a credit to Galen, but just as much a credit to you, Brian, for your skills as a coach, because you had to get the kids from really not knowing anything about speech and debate to the point where they're competing and then winning. Wow, that's a big deal. Congratulations and thank you, because I know he puts a ton of time in, well beyond the compensation for the position, and we greatly appreciate it, and I hope you keep doing it. So going forward, thank you.
Thanks. All right, anybody else? No? Okay, moving into 5.3 Schools in Action. I'd like to welcome Susan Jennings from Community Solutions. Welcome, good evening.
Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you for having me here.
Do you want me to, so I want to share that this is, a board member shared with me this, and I think I should share it with everybody else too. So just to be clear, Schools in Action is normally reserved for items that are actually happening within the school, kind of going back on. This is a little bit of a different spin, because it's not what's actually happening in the school, it's what's, Susan has an idea about what we could do in our schools, and so I think this is kind of what she's here to talk a little bit about. So.
Great, thank you very much, Mario. So I don't know how deep I should go. Do people know about Agraria at all? So essentially we bought at the auction that was held last March, we bought 125 acres of all acreage that was sold west of the high school. And this is the map of the property, or a vision of what we'd like to do with it. And just for context, the high school's right about here, directly east of us. This is East State and Yellow Springs Road. So I've been working a lot with teachers and also with Tim and Matt, and specifically Tim and I have been talking about the possibility of having Yellow Springs students out to Agraria. We actually had Becca Eastman come with her Into the Wild students. They did great presentations in the barn this fall. She's going to be doing her Project Bluebird there in the spring, and we've also worked with Peggy Morgan, who's a third grade teacher here, on soils projects. So in order to really, we see Yellow Springs Schools as our most important educational partner, both because of the location, but then also because project-based learning fits in so well with all the work that we're doing at Agraria. Specifically, you may know that we're working with the Nature Conservancy and Tecumseh Land Trust to do a restoration of Jacoby Creek. And it's a national model because it's one of the first projects they've done that integrates conservation with agriculture. So it's just a really important project. About 60 of these acres are going to be put into serious conservation with a riparian barrier being like all the honeysuckle taken out and new agroforestry plants being put in. So it's a wonderful research opportunity, education opportunity, both in terms of natural resources, but then also in terms of sustainable agriculture for kids to learn the different ways that soil can be rebuilt and regenerated. So the problem, as many of you know, is that East State and Yellow Springs Road is not a road that you can walk on. So even though we're like half a mile from the high school, there's no way of really getting students there on busing them or bringing them there in cars. So what we're interested in is building a bike path from our barn, which is here, to the high school at least, and potentially from the high school to East Enon Road along the southern edge of the high school property. And to do that, we are going to be applying to the Clean Ohio Fund and the federal Recreational Trails Fund. They have a grant that's due, they are requesting proposals. They're due February 1st, which is a little early for us because we have a lot of other things going on, but we've been encouraged by Brian and Eric and Brian's office, and then also by the state office to go ahead and put in the grant, even if we're not, even if we don't feel fully confident of all the, basically that we don't have enough time to do a fabulous proposal, because even if it doesn't get funded this year, they can give us ideas of how we might apply for next year. So one of the reasons I wanted to speak with the school board is we do have permission from Rick and Mary Donahoe, who own the land to the west of the high school. So essentially, I don't know if you can envision it, but this is Max and Inga Lake's property, which is just north of us. And then Rick and Mary's property starts sort of at the edge of our property and abuts the East State and Yellow Springs Road, and then also the high school. So the track and field team already runs on their property, and they've given permission to us to build a bike path on their property. So we have permission essentially, obviously, for our own property and for theirs. So for the first half mile of the bike path, we have right of way. But the question that I would have when I met with Brian and Eric is we talked about the possibility of actually continuing that bike path the rest of the way to East Enon Road on the south side of the high school property, which would mean that people from Yellow Springs could essentially shoot right out South College Street, directly from town all the way to Agraria with just a little jog on East Enon Road. And so that's why I'm here. We can put in the grant just for the portion of the bike path that is on our property and on the Donahoes, but if the board is interested, we would be happy to add that piece that covers the property, the high school property. And not that would mean that if the money came through, if the design of the new high school, or if there are things that don't seem to fit, then we wouldn't necessarily need to follow through. But it is an opportunity to think about putting that piece of infrastructure into the high school. And I'm especially excited because as you get further with your plans for a new high school, there could be an opportunity for doing bike infrastructure to really use this as a start of envisioning what the infrastructure might look like for a new high school that linked the village bikeways to the high school.
Do you want me to talk about the?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So now I'm with my Rails to Trails.
Where
And
is that hat?
yeah, I know I need a few, and actually probably with my village council hat as well. That's true. Yeah, did you not know that?
Bicycle.
Yes. Actually, Representative Perales stole my Rails to Trails lapel pin, so I one of the things, I think there are a couple compelling things. First of all is, this trail project, which could accommodate both bikes and, runners, hikers, pedestrians. I could see, it being used by our seniors that walk the track, and they could have like a nice way to get out there. There's a lot of compelling pieces of this project that I think, while Susan, we agree that it may not get funded in this first round, it's a very fundable kind of trail project from our experience. I think it's also nice that we've got the Midwest Regional Office of Rails to Trails Conservancy 2 blocks up the street. So we are definitely engaged in that. And the other thing that maybe everybody knows about is the active transportation plan that the village got a grant for, and we're kicking that off in 2 weeks. So this is a great time, I think, for the school board to sign off on this kind of project, because we can tie that into the consultant's work. We're already looking at West South College, and I think you guys know the village has done a lot of work on the sharrows and thinking more about signage to make that a safer route for students. And that's going to be a main corridor that we're focused on, as well as Dayton Street. And so Susan and I have talked about, wrapping this into what those consultants are going to be looking at over the next 6 months. So, yeah.
Do you happen to know what the distance is between the high school and the Donovan property?
You know what, I don't. I know it's about half a mile to that. I would guess maybe a quarter mile or a little less, maybe.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe a little less,
That's good, thanks. Anybody have anything? Yeah?
So, in principle, I love this idea. I think it's terrific, and I'd love to figure out a way to make this happen. I guess my question most immediately is, what are the kind of easement arrangements that legally that you're looking for?
So I assume it's the same for the high school. For Rick Donahoe, we just need an agreement that says in principle that he would be interested in working on a legal right-of-way should we get the grant.
So you don't actually have to submit that legal document with the grant?
No, but you have to submit a letter that says, yes, we know this is happening, we're willing to
look into it.
Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't actually have to have, the details don't have to have been all ironed out.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's part of it feels like a rush to get it done, and obviously there's a lot happening with the school, there's a lot happening with us, but just having talked to Brian and then the program officer for the project, it just made sense to just let's get it in and see what happens.
So I guess along the same lines, I guess is it too early to think about things like maintenance, responsibility,
No, I think that those are the
liability,
things that we'd have to
that kind of
talk
stuff.
about, and
Those are other
I think the
questions that I
maintenance
think we have.
yes, agreed. So I think the maintenance would obviously fall on us, except for I'm not sure, we would have to talk about what that looks like for the part that's on the high school property. And then the other piece is whether it ends up being tarmac or crushed limestone. And there are different maintenance protocols for both of those.
Right. I mean, we sort of think that, an asphalt trail is going to make the most sense in terms of just like, it's a little bit more expensive, but maintenance on crushed limestone is not easy, especially when you think about the water and that sort of thing. So the other thing that Agraria and Community Solutions brings to the table is volunteers that can help with a lot of that maintenance. And one of the things that Eric and I see all the time with these projects is a volunteer group taking that kind of responsibility on. But I think, what you can expect, like we see with the Little Miami Scenic Trail, is that, for the most part, maintenance tends to be, the vegetative piece. Obviously, you get cracks in pavement and that sort of thing, but, it's very doable.
And you're referring to Eric Oberg?
Yes.
Yeah, just want to make.
Yes, our trail development director, yes.
Great. Sean?
How quickly would you find out once you submit the grant?
So we would find out in December, and then the work would have to be done within, is it 12 months or 18 months from that?
18 months.
18 months, so sometime, the actual work would probably happen in 2019 if we got the grant.
So submitting in February, we could start to, like, I support too, like, the concept,
Yeah.
all of it.
Yeah,
There's obviously probably some due diligence we need to do,
yeah.
but, and we submit it, we support it. And then even during that period, before you even receive the grant, we maybe could get some of the details.
Yeah, I think
ironed out.
that, I mean, we had a public meeting at the high school the other night, and there were a lot of interesting questions, and, all positive, but then the question is, like, what's the safety of the students? You know, how close is this to the parking lot? How close is it to cars? So I think those are the kind of things, especially if you end up doing your own layout for the new high school, that you could think about, where does this infrastructure go that gets people out expeditiously but doesn't put them in harm's way in terms of traffic.
Yeah, I think, Sean, also to that, an interesting thing about the Clean Ohio Trail Fund is that they have a 2-year look back. So any money that's invested in the project, there's a matching piece, can be applied to that. So any sort of preliminary engineering work that would be done and that sort of thing is basically money that's invested in the project.
So if it went through the new school, would we be able to take a portion of funding for that? Just
Pay for my path to the school.
Just
Creative things, good. You might add $1 million to the project, but I like it.
I like it. Do you have something?
I don't want to put Tim on the spot, but Tim, you have, put your game down. Is there any, you have thoughts about this or anything else that you'd like to add as you see this, good, bad, indifferent?
Right, no, so as you know, with the Career Center, we've tried to bring in agriculture for 3 years.
Yep.
Sustainable model. We switched it over to engineering.
Right.
And so, not because we didn't want ag in our school, but because we had a tough time finding a fit. We had a tough time with zoning. We couldn't put up hoop houses that would normally run about $900 and now would cost $20,000 to install because of our zoning in the school. When Susan Jennings and the Agraria group came to us, their generosity of their land and their leadership on trying to help our students access it has been really nothing short of spectacular and creative and enthusiastic. They said, here's 3 to 5 acres. I keep going with a bigger number, whatever. 5 to 6 acres.
Exactly.
She's wonderful.
Yeah, right. Where our students could put up hoop houses, could put up, really outdoor amphitheater-ish kinds of things.
Yeah.
So that all of that sort of farm-to-table things that really just got in the way of such pedestrian things as zoning, now are real access pieces to it. Brandon Lowry, Becky Eastman, they're both very excited about it. I know Peg Morgan from Mills Lawn is excited about the opportunities. But I see that the path will be from East Union, right along that ditch, where the field goal, the practice football field is.
Yeah.
So it's right along that ditch, running right through some beehives that you may know about.
Yeah.
Right, and on into Rick Donahoe's property, and then on down into this area. So, I've got a vision of not too unlike the Antioch College sort of bike, that kind of slanted roof thing that they have, where we might have a bike co-op piece. Actually, we have one already in our school, but it's kind of intermittent. But housing them there, so our kids, a whole class, could get on bikes, get on over there in 5 minutes, and start working and doing real research in our block schedule. So I think it's spectacular. I'm really enthusiastic about it.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I'm thinking about the timing, and let's just say for a moment that you do win the lottery and get it on the first round. Some of the design detail here, I'm seeing some issues in my own head that we'll want to address. As our architect is thinking about exactly where the right-of-ways, the parking, the drop-offs, and so forth go, and sort of, I want to make sure that we're not doing two things that wind up conflicting with one another.
Well, actually, I would really love to inquire about somehow being around the table some of the time, to be thinking about what's going to happen with Agraria and with Rick Donahoe's land, so that all those things are taken into consideration as the landscape of the new high school takes shape.
Sounds like a volunteer for a committee. That's what I just heard.
That's another committee, right?
All right. You have anything to say? All right, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you
Great.
very much. It's very exciting.
Oh yeah, these are, I don't know if anybody would like these maps, but I probably didn't bring
Yeah, I'd certainly like them, thanks.
Do you need something from us? I mean, besides
Are
something
you,
official?
So here's-
yeah, go ahead.
I can speak up a little bit about this. I think at the end of the day, we just really wanted an opportunity for Susan to present to you all and for you all to ask any questions you had for clarification. And then what I'm gonna do is, I think, I'll let you guys have a chance to think about it. And if there's a sense that we wanna go forward with the signature, with me writing a letter, sort of a support from the district, I can do that for the grant. Or, if that's not the sense we feel later on, I'll give you all a chance to think about it in the next few days. Then we won't. And either way, I'll communicate one way or another with Susan over the next maybe next week, maybe if we can.
Okay,
So,
thank you very
sound
much.
good?
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate your time. All right,
Thank you very much.
thank you too, Brian, again.
My pleasure.
All right, moving into 5.4 administrative reports.
So we're gonna have Donna go first because she's not feeling well.
I've had a cold,
I mean,
I took
cool.
some cold medicine, and I just don't feel all that great. So I will share some information about our special ed profile and then an update.
Sorry, I'll pull it up here. It's on a different page there for a second.
Okay, this is information about the special education profile. It's information from the state that is put out in fall, winter. I talk to you twice a year about data that we get from the state. In the summer, at the beginning of the year, we get a determination. It's our official rating. And then midway, that gives you met requirements, needs assistance, needs intervention. We get those kinds of designations. That I talked to you in September about. And that information at the beginning of the year is based on the data we submit for 15-16 for 2017. So the beginning of the year, that data was from 15-16. And then that's done. Then this data is kind of a midpoint kind of check-in to say how are you doing before you get the next determination. So this is the profile that's based on the 16-17 data, and that's being submitted. And if you look, there's two parts of it. This first part is about preschool, and I went down and listed all the things that we met. And go up, there should be a first page. This is the second
Oh,
page.
okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go down.
Or
Maybe
down.
it's
Maybe
this
it
is
got some.
backwards at least.
Yeah, somehow it got
There it is.
put in the wrong
okay.
order. Okay, so the preschool, these are indicators that are set by the state, and when we turn in data to the state that we're required to turn in, they get these numbers. The T is the target set by the state, and then YS is what our data was. So for preschool, they ask things like, how many kids are being educated in inclusive settings as opposed to being separated? Well, all of ours are. So you can see what their target is for districts, and ours was 100%. And who's being separated, we don't have any in special programs, so ours are all inclusive. The next three are about growth, looking at kids that came into the preschool program that were below average with social emotional skills, knowledge or readiness skills, and behavioral skills. Did they make progress? And those, there's targets, and again, all of our kids made progress. And then the last one is about procedural. We need to make sure that anybody coming from early intervention gets their services put in place for preschool by their 3rd birthday, so it's a seamless transition. We're required to do that for everybody, and we did. But at the bottom you'll see there were a couple issues that were not met. Along with the kids that made growth, there's another measure for social emotional readiness skills and behavior. Those are about, that's looking at, do the kids that leave, are they, leave preschool, going to kindergarten, are they in the average range for their age? The problem with this, and there's a little asterisk there, if you see they're all zeros, there's something odd with that. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, that's not right. It just looked like a paperwork glitch to me, and I remembered there was a form, this is based on a form that gets turned in, and they changed the submission, they changed the form. And I just remember thinking, oh, that's gonna make a mess. And I think it did. So I think this data is not accurate. I know it's not accurate, actually. I just am working to find, I had to call our regional center to say, I think there's a problem. She's like, yeah, that's weird, there's a problem. So then I have to email the Office of Exceptional Children. There's certain reporting periods, and when they close because they can't leave them open forever to fix things. So I don't know if they could fix it, but I just wanted you to know that that's not accurate data. It was a paperwork glitch. I do need to check with the ESC to make sure they know how to submit it properly and get it to Susan the right way so that we don't continue to have a glitch. But I didn't want you to think that nobody was, nobody was getting into the average range, because that's not true. So that's why there's that note at the bottom. So that's preschool. Then if you go, I guess, up now to the second page, this is for school age, where it says SWD. That is what the state's acronym for Students with Disabilities. So they look at kids that participate in state tests, regular state tests, alternate assessment state tests, kids that participate in state tests. They have a target, and ours participate. They look at proficiency rate for reading and math. They have targets which are a little bit lower because these are kids with disabilities, and we met those targets. Then they look at discipline, looking at, are we suspending or expelling kids with disabilities more often than kids without disabilities? We were fine with that. And then is there any disproportionality across race or ethnicity? And we're fine with that. So we met those. They look at what's called least restrictive environment. Are most of our kids in inclusive settings? They look at, our kids being pushed service into general ed, how many are out of special ed, and then how many are in needing separate facilities. And across all those, we were fine on, met all the targets or did well with those. As far as graduation, they look at kids with disabilities. How many graduated, there's a target for that. We had 100%. How many dropped out? We had none. And then if they had transition plans in place when they were supposed to, and all of ours did. Then they look just for, we have to have initial evaluations done on time within a certain time frame, and we had all of ours done on time. Of course, we're not allowed to have any not on time, and that was fine. And then they look at data to see if we had any issues with that, and ours were all fine. So we met everything we needed to. There's a few areas that said not reported, and that was just because we didn't have enough to report. So there was nothing unmet at school age. At the bottom, it's the to be determined. They haven't set the target for 2 measures that should be coming, which is looking at how many kids participate in the regular state tests, meaning not the alternate assessment that's for kids with more cognitive or severe disabilities. So we have data on what ours were, but they don't have a target set yet. And then the last one is a little bit more controversial. It's graduating by standard requirements. A lot of kids with disabilities need accommodations for their disability condition to participate in the regular test. So they're going to be posting how many kids take the test and meet the standard without their accommodations. So you see, we'd have 88% participating in the regular tests, but only, say, 54 that do that without accommodations. So, I don't know, it's kind of a controversial thing, because why would you put up there, I mean, if you need it for your disability, why is it kind of being posted that way? So those are measures that would come later. We would see them in our profiles and our determinations. So that's the only thing that I have. So overall, we did really well.
Yeah. Very nice. Very good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody have? Thanks very much. Hope you feel better.
Hope you feel better now.
Next time.
All right.
Oh, we mixed it up.
Principal's report. Go the other way?
Yeah.
So, McKinney Middle School, Yellow Springs High School, you have the report submitted in front of you. I wanted to go back in time a little bit, if I could, to talk about some things we had. So a lot of facility stuff that we did, and there was a month that both Matt and I enjoyed very much about not being able to submit a board report. But realized it was something that we also wanted to kind of celebrate. We had our first winter exhibition night. We changed the date from before winter break to to the Monday of Thanksgiving break. And just incidentally allowed us to put exams before winter break, and so our students were really pleased about that. I think our teachers were pretty happy with it. And it made for a really invigorating exhibition night. And so, you know, I think by a lot of people's perspectives, and I think I saw all of you there, in fact, it was one of the best we've had. I'd say top 3 for sure, maybe top 2. I don't know what the top 1 is, but it was just that, it was that good. We saw immersive exhibitions. We saw students who had more student choice and flexibility and freedom in developing the product or target that they were working on. We saw just even more professionalism. As you know, we've started our graduate profile where we have 5 attributes. One of them is called professionalism. And so we even saw more kids kind of dressed up, ready to sort of impress, if you will. So it was really, it just seemed a bit more mature in a lot of ways than we've done in the past. And I think that all credit goes to our students and the teachers who were guiding on it. So that was one piece. And the second piece, new to it, and I'm just kind of proud of our teens in the United Student Society. We started, we didn't quite know what we wanted to do as kind of a go-to project. You know, as you know, we started the United Student Society, which by different accounts and different stories, it may have been an organization around since the 50s, somebody was saying recently. And so our students have kind of re-upped it since Martin Luther King Day Village programming last year, and it was terrific. I was going to include a picture of Steve. Steve sat right beside me, and I was spilling food, although you did a great job of being polite. Yeah, that's right, I'm sorry.
Steve M?
Yeah, Steve M, right. But it was terrific. And so what these students did was they hosted a potluck with structured conversation that got increasingly more courageous along the way about race, about identity, about orientation. Our students hosted it by bringing all the pasta entrees and then invited other student groups to be a part of it, whether it was the Gay Straight Alliance or whether it was School Forest or whatever it might be. And they brought entrees and they sort of had questions in there that sort of helped be a part of what we hoped would be real community building, and having some courageous conversations around in a structured way that wasn't, you know, it didn't have the intensity or anonymity of Facebook. It was about community building, and thought for the first time it was just terrific. We had 4 student hosts up there. On the picture there, you can see Hanifa and Anlin, Emil and Amani. You can't see in there, but we had over 80 folks there, adults, teens, and it was just a really nice first thing. And part of the United Student Society is not just trying to support and enforce their mission, but it's also about leadership development of our young people. And so that takes a lot of work. And you can't just say, that kid's a leader. Really, there's a lot of leadership in all of this. And how we set up these structures and scaffold this stuff, this was a really, in that sense, really tremendously successful in a lot of ways. So I just want to kind of show some images from it and talk a little bit about it, because I didn't get a chance to talk about it a couple months ago.
I couldn't agree more. This was absolutely excellent. I liked how they started it with you chose something, and from there, that's where you chose where to sit. And a lot of people, you got to sit with different people for whatever you thought that topic might be, or a different color each. So the way it was shot, I just thought it was absolutely excellent. And they clearly put a lot of work into it, which made it easier to be involved and get involved with it. So yeah, I want to reiterate what you were saying.
Nice.
Thanks.
Excellent.
All right.
Hi.
Hey.
So, what's going on at Mills Lawn? We're trying to get back in a routine. And we had a kind of a start of, a couple 2-hour delays and then a couple days off, and now it feels like this week we've gotten into a flow now. We've had 3 full days of school. It's nice. Kids are feeling, I think they're really into being back. I mean, a lot of students, they really miss school when they're off for 2 weeks. I mean, they really do, and they love coming back. So we've had a nice tone in the building so far. A couple of things, I wanted to point out the project that's been, I think it was already mentioned tonight by Eli, Mrs. Wilson's 4th grade class. They were featured in a news article, and I think Carol wrote it, yeah, so. It's just a really awesome project that's super timely, and if you read the article, you note that lots of students in that class and across the district are affected by this affordable housing issue. They want to move to Yellow Springs, but they can't. They're part of the community, they're open enrollment students, and I think it's just kind of intriguing to think a bit about it from a student's perspective and how much it means to them, and so these kids are really into this project, and they've got partnerships with, I think there's a potential partnership with the village, there's a partnership with what's the name of the housing? Home Inc. That's already happening, and they're very engaged with that class. I just think it's got a lot of potential, and this is the kind of work that could really benefit the village and beyond the village. Like, the kids are doing real work, and that's going to be valuable around this issue. So I wanted to point that out. Some other things that are going on, we're really focused on goal setting right now. I'm kind of preaching the goal setting. We have to really reflect and then think about where we're going for the second part of the year. So a lot of students are really into that, and teachers are on board. It goes right with our culture. We're learning about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. this week. One of the big things that we all want is for our kids to be able to say why they're off of school for a day. Why am I off on Monday? What's the point? And I would love for anyone, any student to be able to, be asked that question and to explain it, no matter what their age, kindergarten up through 6th. That's been a focus just this week as well. There's some other things on here more about data. I think it's interesting we have to pay attention to these things. We have to pay attention to our 3rd grade fall reading results. Regardless if we think that that's the best measure of reading ability or success in reading, we need to pay attention to it and work within the laws that govern the state and schools. So we're doing pretty well compared to where we have been over the past 2 years with this test. I believe that all of our kids will meet the promotion score and be able to move on to 4th grade without any kind of difficulty. 64% might not sound great for a proficiency level, but it is actually pretty good for the fall test. For this test in particular. And so we're moving right along with that and intervening with kids that need extra support and feeling pretty good about where we stand with that. I don't know if you guys have any questions specifically about that, or we're good. I mean, we're going to be we're getting very good at this game that we have to play. And but the other part of it is we want our kids to be very strong and comfortable and excellent readers. So we're doing these things anyway. We want our kids to be very strong in that area. And then we're also doing our annual. It's actually 3 times a year our benchmark testing that helps us to really make some decisions about what kids need and how they're progressing in math and reading. So, as we got back, it's kind of a focus around some assessments and some data and some planning for students, which I think it's the perfect time of the school year to be thinking about those things to the end of the school year. Sure.
The acronym?
For AIR or STAR?
Yes.
That is the name of the company. I think it's the assessment.
American Institute for Research.
Okay, there you go. You know more than I do.
Sorry?
It's the American Institute for Research.
It's the company that creates the state tests. They have the contract for the state testing for 3rd through 8th grade.
All right, anybody have anything else for that? No? Great, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, moving into Treasurer's Report 6.1, financial report.
I didn't see anything I really wanted to report on for December, but I did put in my notes that we have ordered a 10-passenger van. We took a lot of time figuring out, what the specs are and what we wanted and trying to stay within our budget, and we really wanted a van with they could have 1 or 2 handicap seats, but it took up too much room in a van like that. You can't have over 11 passengers, or you have to have a bus driving CDL, so we needed to keep it under. And there were no stock vans right now that fit what we wanted, so we had to order a 2018 van that's going to go into production here very soon. So we did put that order in. It's going to be probably about $28,000, and the grant is going to Clark State that we are getting the money from. We allocated about 30, so we came in under budget with that, so hopefully we'll have some money that we could move towards something else in that grant. So they said it would take 6 to 8 weeks, if not more, for the van to come in, so we'll just be waiting to see when that comes in. Plus, when we do get it in, we have to put some, put like our name on it and put a sign at the top and things like that, so. But we did finally get one, so we'll have our own van. And then I had 2 certificate of deposits that were $250,000, and they came due in December. So it was just, one of them was towards the end of December, so I haven't reinvested that yet. But, I mean, the Max Saver Plus account, the one I report on every month in paragraph 2, is, I mean, like this past month it was around 1.39%, and that's, not a whole lot more than some of the rates going out. So I'm just going to see what's out there right now, talk to my investment advisor and see, but I might be able to take some of that money and go a little bit longer term, and that should get a better rate. So that might be what I do now, because everything that I have here comes due within a year and a half now. So I'll be unlocking some of that cash. So the only other thing is we got a grant from YSEE, Hidden Figures. Casa Sims is $215. I know she had asked for a lot more money and then ended up not needing that amount of money, I think. So I don't know if you know what she's doing with that.
I think they're going to see the movie, right, at the museum, right?
The base.
The base.
The project is
A bigger project.
It's a bigger project that is all about hidden figures in our community, based around, the idea of the movie and the idea of promoting, Black history and making sure that kids understand, the folks that have not been recognized for their contributions. It's part of a bigger effort by Mikasa Sims, Deborah Mabra, John Gudgel. They've taken on Black History Month celebration and learning and the push to make sure that we have a really relevant month of learning and events. So this is they're going to be seeking out hidden figures in our community, interviewing them, having a gallery with pictures and student writing. So it's going to be it's going to be an awesome project, and I think it's one that's got a lot of passion coming from some of our teachers, and so that's just a piece, I think, of the funding. She's asked for different donations and funds from different organizations, I think, so.
That's all I got. Okay, thank you. Anybody have anything? That's all? All right, moving into superintendent's report and recommendations, 7.1 updates.
There's no vote there. Interesting, when we talk about the financial report, usually there's some kind of a vote. Okay, so we're going to start with Board Member Recognition Month. And this is always a great opportunity every year to...
We're getting to have so much
Don't get too
fun.
excited, okay? Don't get too excited.
I've got a drum roll every year.
So, January is Board Recognition Month, and it's a great opportunity for us to remember and appreciate our board members for everything you do every single year and all the time for our schools. And so I think for the community should know this, our Board of Education, your elected officials, in addition to what you see in board meetings, have a lot of interactions within the community, with myself, with members of the school district itself, and are really practice a lot of diligence in their efforts and really try to work hard to learn more about what's happening in our schools between meetings. They're constantly guiding me and giving me information and their feedback, and they're putting a lot of time in outside of meetings. I think sometimes meetings look like everything goes real smooth and great, and it does, But that's because they're doing a lot of work in between meetings, getting prepared for the meetings before they happen. And I think that's a really important point for the community to know in terms of what they do. So this is a great opportunity to thank you. I want to thank you for your efforts and everything you do for our schools. And we have these great certificates. They're a little different this year.
Yeah.
They are.
You know, a little more spicy.
A little more bulldog blue, I'm noticing.
Yeah, a little more bulldog blue.
Yeah.
Steve, we don't have one for you yet, but after the first year, we're going to work on getting your frame over this year, so please don't feel salty because you're not getting one. Aida Rahemic. Congratulations, Aida. Thank you. Sean Grady. Sylvia Ellison. Sylvia, and Rebecca Kahn. So we appreciate the effort our board members make every year, every month, all the time, every day. And you know, it's a challenging job, especially at times where you're kind of sometimes challenging the community in ways that we hadn't before. And I think that's certainly the past 6 to 12 months has been that for you all. And so you've been courageous leaders, and greatly appreciate that. So thank you for everything you do. Second item on the agenda is sort of related to what I just said, which is and I'm trying to be brief today because we have so much on the agenda, and I want to do that. So if there is anything else you want to ask about, please feel free to jump in. It's a separate issue. But basically, I just want to say that we're at a really important point today. Today's a big day for us as a school district because the next item on the agenda is the resolution determined to proceed with a bond issue and income tax levy to help support the addition and renovation for our high school facility. So last month the board voted for the resolution of necessity, and then as is always, anytime you're doing a new levy like this, you have to have a resolution of necessity and then a resolution to proceed. So this month's meeting, this is the resolution to proceed. Should the board vote to support this resolution and approve it today, the next step will be for Don to submit this work to the Board of Elections, I believe, and also the Board of Department of Taxation too, right, I think. And then it will appear officially as a ballot measure on May 8th for a levy and for a vote within our community. And so this vote today that we're about to have officially makes it a ballot issue for the community to decide ultimately, because the community ultimately has to decide whether we go forward or not on May 8th. And so it's been a long time to get here, but I'm glad we're at this point where we feel like we have a recommendation that we think represents what the community has shared with us over the past 9 months, and so I appreciate your leadership with that. So my recommendation is that we go forward with the resolution to proceed.
Anybody have?
Yes, personally, I still feel like because I wasn't a part of the original vote in December, that this feels like I'd be taking on something that I didn't really work towards. Personally, this is what I'm just thinking that, and I've told others about this concern, but it's, for me, it just feels like I understand what y'all have done. You've worked really hard, and I feel like I'd be kind of coattailing it. And if I were to, to say, like, I feel like voting on this would make me feel as though I've done something that I really haven't. And from here, I just feel like that there was a reason it was done, in December, and I feel like just because this is a part 2 to a part 1 that you guys really did work very hard to do. I just really feel uncomfortable isn't the word, but I do feel like it's not something I've earned the right to vote on. Kind of like it would be like voting on the minutes and approving those for me, and so I was just having my concern there of extensions. That's why, because the work has been done and it's been really good work. I personally feel like that's what I'd be doing if I were to. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Appreciate that. The timing is awkward,
Yeah,
for you
and so,
yeah.
And I have to say, I felt a little bit, I remember feeling somewhat the same way when I was in your position, because of, the school year starts in August, and so that's one rhythm, but the election cycle
yeah,
comes in the middle, and so I was sort of dropped down, and I felt like school year was underway, stuff was going on, I didn't really know what was going on yet, I was being asked to deliberate on things sometimes in open session that I hadn't. It's a strange, but I'm afraid unavoidable problem, just given the way the elections are set up when the swearing-ins take place.
so and from here on out,
Yeah.
I feel very much a part of it, but this is just the one where, and I hope that it's understood why, that's all.
Yeah, I support whatever you decide you want to do. I don't, I know when we did the 2020 plan, you'd been on the committee though. Was that when you came on the board? We voted in December.
Yeah, but I think
And you were, there was a new,
I think that's,
Or was that when
I
Sandy
came
came on?
in, but it was also, I had been on committees too, but then I was elected
yeah,
to
so
the
you were
board.
involved, so you were.
So I
involved.
was, it was a little different than what you're describing, because I was a
Yeah, I
new
guess
board
it was-
member, but I had been more actively involved as a community and parent committee member.
Or we
So
had
so it-
voted in January,
yeah.
and it just come up. Yeah, whatever you feel comfortable doing. I wouldn't feel offended in any way if you decided to vote on this, just to let you know, like,
Yeah.
and wouldn't feel like you were riding our coattails, like, or any expression like that. I mean, I totally support. I support whatever you feel comfortable doing. But, so, yeah, it's your decision.
Thank you.
But I want to make sure that you know that, I wouldn't feel that way.
That I appreciate that sentiment, and so, right, once again, that's.
All right, so, moving forward, is there a motion for the resolution?
So moved.
So, I have a question though, are we voting on this? Because 7-1,
We're going at
7-2.
it's just 7-2, okay,
Yeah.
because I see them all in a section together, so I'm just
Yeah,
trying
no,
to keep
it's
track.
just 7.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So we have a first and a second, right?
We don't have a second.
Oh,
Second.
Who was the first, I'm sorry?
I did.
Oh, Steve.
All right. Roll call.
So obviously, you're bringing to us our attorneys, and everyone has vetted the language, and it's all accurate and correct. We've read it, there's nothing really jumping out that seems surprising.
You can actually see the, interestingly, well, you guys see the actual ballot language in there too,
Yeah.
which is really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's what they would look like, so.
There it is.
All right. It's been a long haul.
Yes, indeed.
Roll call.
Naida,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Sylvia,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Steve.
Abstained.
All right. Resolution passes. Okay, moving on to the administrative portion of consent calendar, 7.3 through 7.4. That's the policies, first reading of policies.
Did we vote on first readings?
You do.
Yeah,
We did, I thought we did.
Yeah, no, we do, and then it moves into the second.
Because we don't, at the Career Center, we don't really.
Really?
Yeah, not
I
on
wonder
first
if you have
readings.
to then. Maybe you don't have to.
I'm not, I'm just saying.
So you do first and second and or
Or they do have a first reading and then.
Your first reading, that's that, and then when the second reading happens, we vote on that.
Oh, we can look into
because they've all
that.
been through the policy committee to get to this
To this
place.
Right.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
I don't know if you're
Double
it's
check
supposed to
that.
make you feel more strongly that you really are supposed to go read them.
Yeah,
Because coming up, you're going to be voting to approve it. That's kind of what it always does to me. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I better go read all that stuff because it's usually a lot.
Yeah.
Because I know it's coming that it's going to be approved. This isn't the approval, this is saying, these are here for the first reading, then there'll be a second reading, and then
That's
seriously,
yeah.
we're voting to approve it or not, so get reading.
Okay, well, so there's policies, and then, do you want to say anything about the?
Sure, it's a little bit of a different thing. This is a new resolution for us, and it's sort of reflective of the current state of law. If you remember, Steve might know, in terms of Steve Kahn and being in the public, and working for OSU and other folks, and you might know too, Sylvia, about how the auditor a couple years ago passed a law that said you can't spend any money on public funds whatsoever to do any kind of rewards or any kind of food or anything like that whatsoever for employees using public funds. It was a really harsh, not strong reading that really immediately eliminated, sort of raised questions about whether that was actually valid.
Yeah.
And so, so I think that the legislature clarified that language through recent law, which is one of the policies actually you're looking at here. And basically, the clarification now is that the board, each local board of education can set policy around that and determine what qualifies as appropriate uses for public funds for recognition. And so we've sort of looked at this and think this best matches what we do and we have done within Yellow Springs, and just sort of an FYI what this looks like practically, so you all know exactly what you're talking about here and what you're approving here. So May is Staff Appreciation Week, Teacher Appreciation Week. So one of the things we like to do is like the buildings will do like a breakfast at times, or we'll usually do a lunch during that week that we do, and what we do for lunch. I mean, this is sort of real simple stuff. So we're getting a meat tray for each of the buildings. What have you done in the past for breakfast?
Just like, eggs and potatoes and fruit, or bagels and fruit or something like that.
And occasionally, like the gifts idea, like the beginning of the school year, one year we've done this. I want to do it again, but we just haven't. One year we did do a t-shirt, so for everybody got Fearless Thinker t-shirts, which was great. But we haven't done it since, largely because we're so concerned about spending those funds and being very careful about how we spend those funds on that kind of thing. Every year, retirement plaques that you've seen that we give out are paid for using public dollars. Then any food related for staff meetings and things of that nature. So as an example, next Wednesday, or anytime, like we had a group of teachers that went all the way up to Columbus for that recognition for the middle school. We all ate food together, and that was something we did as well. It's just, that's all part of the, that's actually approved in board policy to do that anyway. Those are the kinds of things that we typically will do. And so it doesn't happen very often either, but just FYI. Anything else that you want to add that sort of?
No. Some committees and full working meetings, we will work, especially with all the scheduling things that we've done, the block scheduling, hybrid things. That's 3 or 4 people just powering through all day. And so $10 Benitez pizza and a glass of water.
Well, and I guess I want to say too.
No toppings.
One topping for the special.
For me, I think little small gifts of recognition go a long way, with people when you show that you really care, that you're committed to them and working. I think that it makes a huge difference. I mean, we have folks who are working long, difficult hours on committee, volunteering on committees to put all kinds of time in to do a lot of different things, and I think it's for us to be able to do that, I think really sends a message to teachers that we value them, and even though it's a very small gesture, I think it goes a long way, and I think it's good to have that available.
I have a
Helps the
question.
community. Yes, sir.
Has there been any complaints that there's been
Good question. I have not had any since I've been here. What about you all? So, and I think the reason this comes up, Steve, is because I think at some point there was an auditor found a district that had done something really crazy, like spent thousands and thousands, of like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on some lavish event for staff, and it was just way out of bounds of what you'd imagine public funds being used for. I mean, what we do is all really small and careful, intentionally in that way. So, but that's a great question. So.
All right. Roll call. No motion.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Sean?
Yes.
Sylvia?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Aida?
We do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, personnel portion of the consent calendar, 7.5 through 7.6. All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So you saw what I wrote in my board report about the Alpha grants, and those 3 teachers. Eli is one of them. I'm sorry, thanks, man. But really, this is funding of the Alpha grant again. I want to be clear that this money is all coming from grants. It's grant funded, so it's not coming out of our general fund dollars in any way. So it's all purely grant funded. And then, what else do I want to share? I think that everything else is really, so we're doing non-renewals of some fall athletics.
Okay, roll call.
Sylvia?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Aida?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
All right. Moving into board communications, 8.1. You want to talk about
Sure, we can
John
try to do
Merrill
this, yeah.
coming to
So-
visit us?
Yeah, John Merrow, longtime PBS, I believe.
NPR.
NPR, he did both, didn't he, or is it just?
Yeah, no, actually, I think you're right.
And he's really a famous, now he's done a lot of writing around education and for years and years, and kind of a foremost expert on public education and public schools in the country. He happens to have a very good relationship with a community member of ours, Richard Lapidus, who is organizing a visit to Dayton with John Merrow. I believe it's end of February, is that right?
End of February, early March.
Early March,
Yeah.
very end of February, very beginning of March. And so part of that visit is going to be a day and a half, I think, dedicated to Yellow Springs, which is great. And so that includes Antioch College, it includes our schools, and the general Yellow Springs community as well. And so Richard's orchestrating that and working actually with Terry Streeter, who used to work with the school district here, but she now runs the Greene County SC. She's the right person to help organize the county effort to get folks here to Yellow Springs to hear John speak or to participate in varying ways. And so she's doing that work for us behind the scenes as well. So we just, once we have more details in terms of what the plans are going to be for Yellow Springs, we will get that out for the community and hope people can come by. But for now, maybe put some stars in your calendar the last couple days of February and the first couple days of March.
Yeah, it's like the evening of the 27th through March 1st. But again, the schedule's not 100% clear yet, so it could just, our portion it's still getting worked out. Yeah, if you just target that weekend,
I think we're
that week.
the second half of the 28th and the first. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think that's right too.
So, but we'll know more as we go forward.
So his most recent publication, his book, he's published several books, and one that is being distributed to all the surrounding superintendents and some board members is this 12 Steps to Public School Reform. This is his most current book, so anyway, it's pretty exciting that he's coming. Okay, we are up for setting a date for a 2020 update. And with so much going on, I think there was some discussion about postponing it. I think it comes up on our tickler file, so that's why it's on the agenda. But I don't know if we actually have to set a date right now, or if we could just sort of say that we'll be looking at that in the next couple months. What's your preference?
So if you remember, this kind of came up last year at this time, and we opted to wait till June, I think, to have it. And I think that probably benefited us more. I can do it whenever the board would like. However, I would suggest that we wait till June again. With so much happening in the spring here and winter over the next 5 months, it's really going to be an intense 5-month period for us. All the way until the end of the school year. My recommendation is that we wait until June again, and we can really.
Yeah, I would second that. But I guess I wanted to add to that, and I don't know where the right moment here is, but Sean, you and I know, have talked about it. I think when I chatted with other people, it may be time to start doing the 2030 plan. And because it is now 2018, and time to put one of these to bed, and I think, Sean, you said a district should never be without a strategic plan. And so I don't know how best or when best to initiate that conversation, but I think it might be time at least to start thinking about it.
Yeah, maybe when you start thinking about the process, or the amount of time we think it'll take to do that strategic planning process.
Yep.
The process we did last time lasted a year and 3 months, I think. And so if we're thinking something similar, then that's, we probably need to get started pretty soon here.
That's what I'm saying.
Next week. First meeting's next week.
But, well, actually, we were thinking probably the fall, if anything, really, if we
Yeah,
want to do
the
that.
latest.
But if we're thinking about something, maybe a 6-month process or something a little smaller, then we can probably wait, but it all depends on what the board feels like is the right way to go.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I support moving it to June,
yeah.
and then even having that conversation around
At that time.
time about where do we
Yeah.
go from here. Like, probably the next step would be to evaluate, like, how we did,
Yeah.
how we're, we've done
Yeah.
in implementing our 2020 plan, and how it might still be very relevant to 2030,
Mhm.
or what.
Yeah.
Or what else has popped up?
Yeah,
that we hadn't
or
thought
what are some
about?
areas that we would
Right.
want to explore and challenge the district
Mm.
over the next 10 years, once we reach that 2020 timeframe. But we could start thinking about that. This would be a good time to start thinking about
It's pretty cool to think about.
it. Not doing it, but
Right.
thinking about,
Just
think
about
about thinking about thinking about.
The needs for the future.
I like that.
Well, and you're not starting this time with so much examples.
That's right. We're in a better, that's right. That's a good
Last
point.
time.
Yeah.
It's really exciting thinking about what each needs, what happens
Mhm.
next, you know?
Exactly.
I love the idea. So,
Okay, so we'll bring it all back up.
Do we do that as part of the June board meeting, so we're not setting, for the update? Do we just incorporate that into the board
Is that
meeting?
what we did last time? We took, like,
Yeah,
only
we
presented
started
like
early.
20 minutes
I
or
think
something like
we
that.
started-
We had a
Yeah.
meeting before the meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we just.
I think that's right.
so that we're not adding
Right.
another date in June.
That's what I remember.
We did.
Yep.
Okay, good plan for
Okay.
that.
Great. All right, Green County Career Center.
Well, we had our organizational meeting last night. We off-scheduled because we have to get it in before whatever the date is that we had to get it in for. So what we got, things are humming along at the Career Center. I think Dave and the staff are doing, a really terrific job. There's been some really nice press that you may have seen, Dayton Business Journal, about some things going on there. The big item we discussed last night were the results of a countywide phone survey that we had commissioned primarily to gauge, two things really. Generally speaking, did people know what the Career Center was about? And then more specifically, to throw out into the public the idea of the Take Flight initiative. The results on the first half of that were, I think, more or less predictable, which is to say, about 2/3 of people surveyed had heard about the Career Center, had some sense of what was going on. About 1/3 had no idea what it was or what it did. It was interesting that 20%, just north of 20% of the people surveyed either had a family member or knew somebody who had been through the Career Center, which was, I think, a little surprising and kind of nice to think about. The really big number was the kind of overwhelming enthusiasm for a new initiative designed around aerospace, aeronautics, avionics, and so forth, which is what we've been talking about. 90% of the respondents thought that this would be a good idea, we contracted with an organization called Fallon, who are a fairly big firm in town, and they said they'd never really ever seen a number like that in a public opinion survey. So that was kind of exciting. So that's the report from GCCC.
Cool, all right. Very good. Okay, all right, moving on to 8.4, other board member items. Anybody?
Can I raise the issue that we've been back and forth on here? I was contacted by the Economic Sustainability Committee, is that what it's called? Sorry?
Commission.
Commission. The Village Commission, I'm sorry, yes, the Village Economic Sustainability Commission, wondering or hoping that the board and the schools would be represented on it. I said that sounded like a good idea to me, but I would bring it up here. I guess, Dawn, in the past, you have had some business with this. I wondered whether the other Dawn might not be the right person
to put on that, since it sort of broadly falls into some of the things that she's been working on. So, yeah, that just, I raised that as something that just came up.
Okay, well, do you have any opinion, Dawn, about your participation in?
I would love for Don Boyer to do that.
Well, it's unanimous then.
That's what happens when you're not at the meeting.
80% of life just showing up.
Now, Don Boyer is serving on another committee, or has that come to an end? The housing.
I think that's a good question. She's on a lot of things right now. She's in the chamber, she does a lot of things. She's kind of our big outreach person.
Well, and I guess I should
to the
say-
community. So this could, in theory, fall under that role.
Right, and I got no sense of what the obligations and responsibilities might be in this little, I don't know whether it's monthly, whether it's quarterly, whether it's.
It's
It
the
would be
first Tuesday of the month, I believe. I think.
Well, I guess aside from scheduling, would it be good to have a sense, and maybe everybody but me does, but if it's like, is it advancement, development related really, or is it just like, this is a committee they want somebody for, so let's just,
Yeah,
Would
no,
like to-
fair enough.
be sure we're doing the right thing with.
Well, and they weren't around for a while, and then
So they're back.
They're back.
Circle back.
Right.
Okay.
That's why I explained to Aida, when I did it, it was at least 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, and they had a charge of writing up a vision for the community, and so I said we met for probably a year, but I don't think we ever actually came up with a vision, and then the committee kind of went away, and then it came back together, and Brian Housh did contact me about possibly being, not necessarily on the committee, but attending the meetings, and I do get all of the emails. But I have not attended any of the meetings because I didn't really know what they wanted my role to be. So it was never explained to me what they're doing now, what they're discussing, what they want that person's role to be. Because when the first one I was on, we were like I had an actual role of something. No power, voting power or anything, but I was kind of like a, whatever you call it, I can't remember. The name was not.
Liaison from the schools or something like that?
Like ex officio, yeah. So I don't know what they want the role to be,
So
and
I
I
guess
don't
unless it was
know.
more clear, I would be concerned about putting somebody's time that is supposed to be for things we've said that this person is supposed to be doing, all of a sudden adding something.
Sure.
That we don't know what it is. And I'm not trying
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be a
no,
total
I'll-
poo-pooer here, but I would like more clarification.
Yeah, right, so let me
Which
retract.
I assume would happen and I don't need to hear about it, but I would like
Well,
it to happen.
I think it is probably a good idea for the board to be represented some way, somehow.
I'd be willing to go to a meeting.
Ding, 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 ding. We have a winner.
But I have to find out when the meetings are. I have a lot of meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I would like to know, especially if it's been Elf Commission for so long.
So maybe you could be our finder out or what it is.
Yeah, right. So it's
yeah,
one of
so,
those,
okay, so,
I'll
right.
come
you do
back and I'll
the
let you know.
reconnaissance.
Okay,
It looks like
great.
this is what their plans
Yeah,
are.
that's
just
great.
Yeah.
Brian
So
can
you'll
give
make
you like a
contact.
heads
You want me
up
to- I'll
about
make
what
contact.
the issues have been for the past year or two, because they've been meeting regularly for a couple of years.
So like what it is
Oh,
in
okay,
this.
so
They
they
came
are-
back and then it's
Yeah,
been
like what this
sustained.
version
But,
is
yeah, but
versus what
just
the
what
old
the
version
school,
was.
what do they want from the board?
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I think
Yeah,
this is great, okay,
Yeah, I'll do that.
So you
great.
can connect.
And I will
Steve with
connect, yep,
Saul Greenberg.
with Saul,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, anybody? So, one of the things we agreed to in our administrative portion of our agenda
Yes.
was 3.15, were our board leadership protocols, and part of that, I don't know if we can call that up, Mario, or not?
The protocols themselves.
Yes. But we agree every year to really follow these protocols, and I would say that it has helped us be a successful working board. So we put a lot into this, as I recall,
Yes.
many years ago, and it's really been useful. So anyway, I just want to make sure, tonight is the night we sign it, so I'm happy to just,
So you have the master
Yeah,
copy.
is this the master copy?
Excellent.
yes.
Okay, then you start it there, we'll send it that way.
Okay, that's it.
So these are our
That's the best.
protocols.
That's number 3.
Would you like a copy of it?
Very nice protocols.
Yeah, they're really good ones. They really spell out
It's just like.
They do.
kind of our.
So a lot of rules.
Yeah.
And which rule am I breaking?
I consulted
This is
weekly.
funny,
Yeah.
like this copy of it, like, is extremely hard to read.
Well, they are.
It's like this font, funky smush up font.
So I just want to bring up the,
It has.
Clerk Highway.
Yeah, that's funky, because the back is totally clear to read and the front is not.
I'm going to bring up our February and March board meetings, because they're early in the month, because there's a lot of.
Oh.
So it's on February 8th and March 8th. It looks like we go later, but I just want to bring that out, because it could be very confusing.
Is it Thursday?
Second, yeah, the second Thursday, so just want to
Oh,
highlight that.
gotcha, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Really early, yeah.
Yep.
Hopefully.
Okay, anybody else have anything? I guess I'd like to welcome you, Steve.
Yes.
Since we had a pro tem president. I just thank you for running and all that campaigning and being here and.
I'm very glad to be here and a part of it. Yeah. I feel very welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Good, appreciate it.
Yes, welcome, Steve.
Thank you.
Here's the master.
He didn't say that to me.
I looked right by
Okay.
Welcome back.
All right.
Okay, so this part of the board meeting is over. We are moving into an executive session, so I thank everybody who attended.